Hello, everyone, listeners. Recently, there have been frequent developments at home and abroad in the United States. Domestic law enforcement disputes have triggered large-scale protests. Major shootings have resulted in tragedies. The flu epidemic has been spreading at a high level in the public health sector. The situation between the United States and Venezuela, as well as Iran, has remained tense internationally. And at the same time, issues related to the protection of children's rights and interests in the entertainment industry have also attracted public attention. These developments have captured the public's attention, and today we will sort them out one by one to gain an in-depth understanding of the relevant situations behind them. First, let's take a look at the latest developments related to law enforcement disputes in the United States. On local time January 7th, U.S. federal law enforcement officers shot and killed a woman during an immigration enforcement operation in Minneapolis, Minnesota. Afterwards, the U.S. Department of Homeland Security announced that the law enforcement officers fired in self-defense. This incident quickly triggered continuous protests in many parts of the United States and became the core incident of recent immigration law enforcement disputes. The core of such disputes stems from issues with the standardization of law enforcement procedures. The process of this shooting was recorded by videos taken by on-site residents, but the specific details still need further investigation and clarification, which has also fueled growing public doubts about the fairness of law enforcement. Different groups have made completely different statements regarding this law enforcement dispute. A spokesperson for the U.S. Department of Homeland Security described the on-site protesters as rioters, stating that approximately 600 protesters gathered and surrounded the ICE office, engaging in acts such as assaulting law enforcement officers and obstructing law enforcement, and ultimately 11 people were arrested on related charges. However, Minneapolis Mayor Jacob Frey and Minnesota Governor Tim Walz both questioned the Department of Homeland Security's description of the fatal shooting and did not recognize the claim of firing in self-defense. The core of the dispute between the two sides lies in the balance between law enforcement, safety and rights protection, and relevant discussions are still ongoing. As the discussions deepened, residents expressed their demands through rallies and other means. In addition to the core protests in Minneapolis, solidarity activities also emerged in many parts of the United States. Participants conveyed their demands for standardized law enforcement through slogans, petitions, and other methods, which also triggered extensive discussions on immigration policies. Everyone exchanged views on issues such as the rationality of immigration management and the allocation of law enforcement resources, hoping that relevant departments would introduce more targeted optimization measures. Currently, the investigation into this shooting incident is ongoing, and the issue of transparency in the investigation process has become a new focus of attention. Some residents and legislators have proposed that the openness of the investigation process should be guaranteed to ensure that the public can timely understand the progress of the investigation. Relevant law enforcement departments have stated that they will announce the investigation results in a timely manner in accordance with judicial procedures. In addition, during the process of performing their supervisory duties and understanding the work of law enforcement departments, some legislators have also conducted discussions and coordination with relevant agencies. At present, relevant discussions are still escalating, and the political level is also paying close attention to this matter. Some legislators have proposed strengthening supervision over immigration law enforcement departments and improving law enforcement standards. There are also voices calling for policy adjustments to fundamentally reduce the occurrence of law enforcement disputes. These discussions not only focus on the resolution of specific incidents but also trigger reflections on the in-depth problems in the U.S. immigration law enforcement system, how to balance law enforcement efficiency and rights protection and ease relevant domestic social contradictions has become an important issue facing the country. In addition to domestic law enforcement disputes, the issue of gun violence also continues to attract attention in American society. In the early hours of local time January 9th, a serial shooting occurred in a rural community in West Point, Clay County, eastern Mississippi, USA, resulting in 6 deaths, including 1 child. A male suspect has been arrested by the police, and the community has lifted the alert. This incident once again touched the sensitive nerve of American society regarding gun violence and became one of the hot topics of public discussion recently. Clay County Sheriff Eddie Scott revealed the basic details of the case to the outside world on the 10th, clearly stating that the suspect will be severely punished in accordance with the law and that efforts will be made to ensure community safety. According to the preliminary investigation information released by the local police, the suspect has been successfully controlled, and all the deceased are relatives of the suspect. However, the police have not yet released case details related to the motive for the crime, and the specific context of the case is still under further verification. Law enforcement departments stated that they will comprehensively sort out the case context, conduct in-depth investigations into the motive for the crime, the relevant background of the suspect, and other key information to ensure that the case is handled fairly, and will timely announce the progress of the investigation to the public. This shooting has dealt a heavy blow to the victims' families and plunged the local community into grief and anxiety. A local resident stated in an interview that the occurrence of such violent incidents has seriously affected the sense of security in the community, and hoped that the government would take more effective measures to ensure public safety. Relevant organizations in the community have also taken action to provide psychological counseling and necessary living assistance to the victims' families to help them get through this difficult time. After the incident, the local police quickly strengthened community patrols, increased the frequency and scope of patrols to improve the level of community security prevention and control and appease public sentiment. At the same time, the police also called on residents to strengthen their awareness of self-protection, report suspicious situations to the police in a timely manner, and form a joint prevention and control force between the police and the people. Currently, the order in the community has gradually recovered, but the public's concerns about safety guarantees have not been completely eliminated. This incident once again triggered extensive discussions in American society on gun control issues. Many people called for strengthening gun control efforts, improving relevant laws and regulations, and curbing the occurrence of gun violence from the source. After all, such serial shootings resulting in multiple deaths have greatly damaged social security and made the public deeply anxious about the lack of gun control. The local government also stated that it will take this incident as an opportunity to further promote community safety governance, strengthen gun safety publicity and education, and at the same time link up with relevant departments to improve the gun control mechanism. How to effectively reduce gun violence and ensure public safety remains a severe challenge facing the U.S. government and people, which requires the joint participation and discussion of the whole society to solve. Turning our attention to the international situation. The recent situation between the United States and Venezuela has continued to escalate, becoming one of the focuses of international attention. On local time January 3rd, the United States launched a large-scale military operation against Venezuela, raided Caracas, the capital of Venezuela, forcibly detained President Maduro and his wife of Venezuela and took them to the United States. This act of military aggression triggered strong condemnation from Venezuela. On January 10th, the U.S. Department of State issued the latest travel safety alert for Venezuela again, maintaining the highest warning level of Level 4, urging all U.S. citizens not to travel to Venezuela, and U.S. citizens in Venezuela to evacuate immediately. The alert also mentioned that there are media reports indicating that some militia organizations in Venezuela are setting up roadblocks and searching vehicles to find U.S. citizens or evidence of supporting the United States, reminding U.S. citizens to take preventive measures when leaving the country. In response to the U.S. safety alert, Venezuela firmly denied it. On local time January 10th, Venezuelan Foreign Minister Iván Gil issued an announcement on social media, stating that the U.S. safety alert is based on non-existent narratives aimed at creating a false perception of risk. He emphasized that Venezuela is currently in a state of complete calm, peace and stability, and all armed forces in the country are under the control of the government. It is worth noting that since March 2019, the United States has withdrawn all diplomatic personnel from its embassy in Caracas and suspended its operations, and currently cannot provide emergency assistance to U.S. citizens in Venezuela. In addition to Venezuela, President Trump's recent tough remarks in the diplomatic field have also attracted widespread attention. He not only promoted the military operation against Venezuela but also made remarks on security issues in various regions, emphasizing that the United States will safeguard its own interests in the Americas. These remarks have triggered extensive discussions in the international community, and all parties are highly concerned about the direction of U.S. foreign policy. Among them, the relationship between the United States and Mexico has also become tense due to Trump's remarks. Trump recently stated that the United States must take action against Mexico because drugs are pouring into Mexico, demanding that the Mexican government strengthen efforts to combat drug smuggling. This remark triggered strong dissatisfaction among Mexican citizens, and thousands of Mexican citizens held demonstrations protesting U.S.-style policies. The Mexican government has made it clear that it will resolutely combat drug trafficking and defend national sovereignty and public safety, and at the same time emphasized that combating drug trafficking requires strengthened cooperation among various countries and respect for each other's national sovereignty. The relevant diplomatic remarks and military actions of the United States have triggered extensive discussions in the international community. Some countries believe that all countries should resolve differences through equal dialogue and oppose interfering in the internal affairs of other countries through means such as military threats. Other countries express understanding of the U.S. demand to safeguard its own interests and hope that all parties can reach a consensus through consultation. Analysts believe that the geopolitical situation in the Americas is complex, and all parties should uphold the principles of mutual respect, equality, and mutual benefit, and resolve differences through dialogue and consultation to maintain regional peace and development. Currently, the tense situation between the United States and Venezuela has not eased, and communication between the United States and Mexico in the field of anti-drug efforts is also facing challenges. How to resolve differences and promote regional cooperation through effective communication has become the focus of international attention. The international community generally hopes that relevant countries will prioritize regional peace and stability and work together to build equal and mutually beneficial diplomatic relations. Turning our focus back to the United States, in addition to law enforcement and violent crime issues, the public health sector is also under enormous pressure. Recently, the United States is in the flu season, and the flu epidemic has continued to spread at a high level, bringing great challenges to the public health system. According to the latest data released by the U.S. Centers for Disease Control and Prevention (CDC), on January 2, 2026, since the start of this flu season, the cumulative number of flu cases in the United States has reached at least about 7.5 million, including approximately 81,000 hospitalizations and 3,100 deaths. Currently, the level of flu activity across the United States continues to rise. CDC officials stated that various key monitoring indicators in all regions of the United States currently show that flu activity is at a high level. The epidemic is still in the development stage, and the changes in the epidemic situation need to be continuously monitored in the follow-up. In this flu epidemic, vulnerable groups such as children and the elderly have been more affected. CDC monitoring data shows that the number of flu-related visits to pediatric clinics has increased recently due to their weak immune systems. Children are at a relatively high risk of developing severe cases after being infected with the flu. Relevant research data shows that getting a flu vaccine can effectively reduce the risk of severe illness and death. The CDC has also emphasized many times that vulnerable groups such as children and the elderly should be prioritized for flu vaccination. Currently, some pediatric medical institutions are facing increased pressure from patient visits, and medical staff are making every effort to ensure the diagnosis and treatment needs of patients. In addition to children, Groups such as the elderly and patients with chronic diseases are also at a relatively high risk of infection. Some nursing homes have strengthened flu prevention and control measures, including regular disinfection, monitoring the health status of the elderly, and advocating vaccination to fully prevent the occurrence of clustered flu cases. In terms of virus types, the influenza AH3N2 virus is the dominant virus this flu season. In the week ending December 20, 2025, 97.3% of the flu virus samples reported by U.S. public health laboratories were influenza A viruses, and only 2.7% were influenza B viruses. CDC experts stated that the mutation of flu viruses is normal. An analysis of 275 influenza AH3N2 virus samples collected since September 28, 2025, shows that approximately 89.5% belong to the K clade of the influenza AH3N2 virus. For the currently prevalent flu viruses, the existing flu vaccines can still provide a certain level of protective effect, although the matching degree of some subtypes needs to be improved. Vaccination is still the most effective means of preventing the flu. The CDC calls on the public to attach great importance to flu prevention and control and actively get vaccinated to reduce the risk of infection. The continuous spread of the epidemic has brought certain pressure to the U.S. medical system. The number of emergency visits in some hospitals has increased, and the problem of shortage of medical staff has become more prominent. Hospital officials stated that they are optimizing the diagnosis and treatment process and allocating medical resources to ensure the timely treatment of patients. At the same time, the public's demand for flu-related medical supplies has increased. Some pharmacies have experienced shortages of flu-related drugs and test kits. Relevant enterprises are increasing production efforts to ensure market supply. Currently, the U.S. medical system is making every effort to respond to the challenges brought by the flu epidemic, and relevant departments are also actively coordinating medical resources to ensure the orderly development of diagnosis and treatment work. The CDC and health departments in various regions are popularizing flu prevention and control knowledge to the public through various channels, guiding the public to respond to the epidemic scientifically and reducing virus transmission. The CDC also specially reminds that antiviral drugs should be used as early as possible after being infected with the flu, which is particularly important for groups at high risk of developing serious complications such as the elderly and patients with chronic diseases. The CDC also calls on the public to attach great importance to flu prevention and control, minimize visits to crowded places, wear masks scientifically in public places, wash hands frequently, maintain an appropriate social distance, and actively get vaccinated against the flu. For patients who have been infected with the flu, they should seek medical treatment in a timely manner and isolate themselves at home to avoid further spreading the virus to others. Faced with the current flu epidemic, the U.S. government, medical system, and people are working together to respond. How to effectively control the spread of the epidemic and ease the pressure on the medical system remains a key focus that needs continuous attention. Next, let's focus on the situation in Iran. Recently, large-scale demonstrations have broken out in Iran due to rising prices and currency devaluation, with riots occurring in many places and causing casualties. The relevant situation has attracted great attention from the international community. Since the United States announced its unilateral withdrawal from the Iran nuclear agreement in 2018, Iran has been subject to multiple rounds of severe sanctions by the United States and the West, leading to currency devaluation, soaring inflation, and severe damage to economic development. Especially recently, the sharp fluctuations in the exchange rate of the Iranian rial have led to hyperinflation, a sharp rise in the cost of living for the people, and the accumulation of dissatisfaction, which ultimately erupted. According to Iran's Fars news agency, on the night of January 3rd, a demonstration conflict broke out in Ilam province in western Iran. Attackers attacked multiple government buildings, destroyed several banks, and many citizens' residences were damaged, resulting in 3 deaths. Sporadic protests also occurred in Tehran. As the demonstrations progressed, conflicts in some areas continued to escalate. Relevant videos and information spread widely on the internet, triggering extensive discussions in the international community. Iran's Supreme National Security Council issued a statement on the 9th, stating that under the planning and control of the United States and Israel, this protest has evolved into a sabotage of national security. However, according to multiple sources, the number of protesters has decreased in recent days, but there are still foreign hostile forces trying to use relevant incidents to disrupt the situation. Faced with the domestic social situation, the Iranian government has taken a series of measures to maintain social stability. At the economic level, the government's economic team has held an emergency meeting and introduced economic reform measures such as strengthening currency control and increasing living subsidies for the people. Iranian President Ebrahim Raisi also signed a presidential decree, announcing that each Iranian citizen will receive a subsidy for purchasing daily necessities starting from January 10th. At the security level, the Iranian government stated that it will resolutely combat any acts that undermine social stability and safeguard national security and interests. Iran's supreme leader Ayatollah Ali Khamenei delivered a speech in Tehran on January 3rd, condemning some forces for inciting riots by using merchant protests, emphasizing that it is absolutely unacceptable, and pointing out that Iran will never yield to the enemy. The international community pays close attention to the situation in Iran. Many countries and international organizations call on the Iranian government to exercise restraint, listen to the reasonable demands of the people, and resolve domestic conflicts through dialogue and consultation. The U.S. statement has further exacerbated the tense situation. According to multiple informed U.S. officials revealed on January 10th, President Trump has recently received a briefing on military strike plans against Iran and is seriously considering whether to authorize the U.S. military to launch strikes. The U.S. military's action options include strikes on non-military targets in Tehran. Trump's previous relevant remarks have also triggered strong dissatisfaction from the Iranian government. The Iranian government stated that it resolutely opposes any external forces interfering in its internal affairs, and will firmly safeguard national sovereignty and territorial integrity. Iranian Foreign Ministry spokesperson Nasser Kanani also stated on January 5th that the Iranian armed forces are maintaining a high degree of vigilance and strengthening combat readiness to respond to possible new rounds of attacks. The current social situation has caused a certain impact on Iran's economy and social order. Commercial activities, production and operation, and transportation in some areas have been affected. The international community generally hopes that the Iranian government can resolve differences through effective communication with the people and quickly restore normal social order. At the same time, all parties also call on external forces to respect Iran's national sovereignty and not interfere in Iran's internal affairs, creating a good external environment for the settlement of Iran's domestic issues. Currently, the relevant social situation in Iran is still ongoing, and communication and consultation between the government and the people are also gradually advancing. How to quickly ease economic and people's livelihood pressures, calm public dissatisfaction, and restore normal social order has become an important challenge facing the Iranian government. Whether the United States will implement military strikes against Iran also makes the development of the situation full of uncertainty. The international community will continue to pay attention to the development of the situation in Iran and hopes that relevant issues can be resolved in a peaceful and legal manner. Finally, let's focus on the latest developments in the entertainment industry. Recently, there have been many industry developments in the U.S. entertainment industry that have attracted attention. Among them, issues related to the protection of children's rights and interests in the film and television industry have once again become the focus of public discussion, triggering extensive reflections from the industry and society. In the development process of the film and television industry, the protection of children's rights and interests has always been a topic of great concern. In recent years, with the continuous development of the industry, relevant departments and industry organizations have also gradually improved the relevant norms for the protection of child actors, including clarifying working hours, ensuring the right to education, and preventing various types of infringement. Many people in the industry said that as a vulnerable group, the legitimate rights and interests of child actors need to be jointly safeguarded by the whole society. The industry should establish a stricter supervision mechanism to create a safe and healthy working environment for child actors. Relevant discussions in the industry have also promoted the optimization of some norms. Some film and television production companies have introduced internal management systems to strengthen the protection of child actors' working scenes and clarify the responsibilities of relevant personnel. At the same time, industry organizations are also strengthening publicity and guidance to enhance practitioners' awareness of rights protection, calling on the entire industry to jointly adhere to moral and legal bottom lines and safeguard the legitimate rights and interests of child actors. Recently, the discussion on the issue of protecting the rights and interests of child actors in the film and television industry has heated up again, stemming from the public's concerns about the working environment and rights protection of child actors. Many people call for further refining relevant laws and regulations, clarifying the specific standards and responsible subjects for the protection of child actors' rights and interests, and increasing the punishment for infringement acts. At the same time, there are also voices suggesting strengthening the supervision of the film and television production process to ensure that relevant protection measures are implemented in place. The protection of child actors' rights and interests is not only related to the healthy growth of individuals but also affects the long-term development of the film and television industry. Industry experts said that only by establishing a sound protection mechanism, a strict supervision system, and a clear responsibility system can we fundamentally prevent the occurrence of infringement acts and allow child actors to participate in performing activities in a safe environment. Relevant departments also stated that they will continue to pay attention to industry developments and improve relevant policies and regulations in a timely manner to promote the standardized development of the industry. This discussion on the issue has also made more people realize that the protection of children's rights and interests is the common responsibility of the whole society. In addition to internal industry norms and supervision, parents, schools, and all sectors of society should play an active role in paying attention to the growth status of child actors and timely discovering and stopping various infringement acts. Only by forming a joint force can we create a healthy and safe growth and working environment for child actors. Currently, the discussion on the protection of children's rights and interests in the film and television industry is still ongoing, and relevant departments and industry organizations are also actively promoting the improvement of relevant norms. It is hoped that through the joint efforts of the whole society, the legitimate rights and interests of child actors can be effectively protected, and the film and television industry can develop in a healthier and more standardized direction. The above are the recent series of developments we have sorted out for you today. Whether these developments occur in the United States or internationally, they have far-reaching impacts and are worthy of our continuous attention and reflection. Thank you for listening, and we will see you next time.